Okay, my name's Paul Drury. I write for Retro Gamer magazine and also co-host the Ted Dabney Experience podcast. Now, they say that life's an adventure. Well, I for one was very well prepared for adventures thanks to my guest today, because just using a few well-chosen words, he created whole worlds for us to explore, whether that was desert islands, Egyptian pyramids, or Count Dracula's castle. And all of those were rendered with the most powerful graphics engine ever created, our imaginations. Please give a warm, we are not worthy welcome, so a lot of W's, to Mr. Scott Adams! Woo!
It's great to be here. I hope everybody is enjoying the crowds and the madness. And just a quick thanks to our Lord for allowing me to be here. It is a true blessing from God to attend. And if I don't know you, I'd like to. I don't like having fans. I like having friends. So we haven't met afterwards. Come by and say hello, please.
What a lovely thing to say. Now, Scott, I wanted to start by saying you are our only Scott Adams. But I just wondered, have you ever been confused with the creator of the Dilbert cartoons, another Scott Adams?
Yes. Scott Adams Dilbert, who did a comic strip for quite a long time, is well known for it, had a large following. At the dawn of the internet, back in the last century, I started getting emails meant for him, and I collected them. And then I get an email from him finally saying, "Hey, are you the Scott Adams Adventure guy? I've got a bunch of emails meant for you." And so we exchanged batches of emails, which was kind of interesting. I still have thousands of emails that were meant for him, because later in the 21st century, he was a little bit harder to reach. And then, for whatever reason, Google decided that everybody looking for Scott Adams Dilbert was going to be given my email address.
Well, the way we're going to structure this talk, I've picked out a handful, 6 of Scott's key games spread over his long career. And we're going to start, perhaps understandably, with your first published game. Now, can I stress, this is your first published game, Scott, but it wasn't the first game you wrote. Way back in the late 60s, I believe you were actually creating simple sort of tic-tac-toe with noughts and crosses games. Right back in the early 60s, is that correct?
I actually was enamored with an IBM display I saw at the New York World's Fair in 1965. Went there, and it was the first time I realized you could play games on a computer, because IBM in their display had a tic-tac-toe game. Got up there and you had a chance to play, and it said, the computer won or tie. And I said, where's the I win when I play? And I said, well, that can't happen. I went, huh? And that was the first time I realized, wow, computers can be pretty powerful. Fast forward to the late 1960s, early 1970s, the state of Florida, as an experiment, put a computer terminal in the high school I was attending in my senior year. And that changed my life. I was supposed to be in pre-med that year. I was supposed to skip 12th grade. I actually talked my mother out of that and went ahead and was in my senior year. And because of that, I saw the computer terminal. And one of the very first games I wrote, of course, was tic-tac-toe, where the computer would never lose. That was my very first game.
Well, let's bring you on a little bit to 10 years later when you released Adventureland. Now, you just said you got access to early computers, mainframe computers. Did you play the seminal Colossal Caves adventure by Crowther Woods?
Yes. I was working as a mainframe programmer in Lake Murray, Florida for a company called Stromper Carlson. They were just then starting to break into the market of digital central offices for telephone. They were a telephone company manufacturer and involved in all areas of that. somebody said, hey, the IT department got this game and see me play. And I found out about it. And what I did was I got to log into it. I'd come in every day early before work and stay every day late after work. And I played Colossal Caves and I was hooked. And at that time I had my very first appliance computer, i.e. one that I didn't have to build. I had other machines before this, and I had done other games. But we're talking about my first appliance computer. And I thought I wanted to learn how to use this novel language that was built into it called Microsoft Basic. So, wow, it has strings. I want to learn out what are strings. Strings are a way in Basic that you can handle language. I thought, well, now I've got to write a game that uses language somehow. I played Colossal Caves and I decided, yep, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a game like Colossal Caves.
I find that interesting because as far as I understand, Colossal Caves, I think it took up about 300k. So what made you think you could recreate something like that on a very humble home micro?
Yeah, and that was either a 16 or 24-bit machine, if I remember correctly. So that was even bigger when you measure it in bytes. Yeah, I told my colleagues and friends there at work that I was going to write a game like Colossal Caves. And they said, no way, you can't do that on your little toy computer with 16 kilobytes. Not possible. I said, let's see. So I went ahead, I started writing the game, realized I needed to be clever, so I actually invented my own language to write the game in, wrote a compiler that would then take that language and put it into a pseudocode, and then wrote the interpreter for it, and then wrote the game at the same time, and let them each feed together as I was building this thing.
I find that really interesting because perhaps we might imagine you'd drawn a large-scale map with all the locations. It wasn't like that at all then, was it room by room, puzzle by puzzle?
Yep, actually it was location by location. I started with, well, I got to start somewhere. Where am I going to start? Okay, you're in the forest. Okay, that's a good start. I'm in a forest. I should have some items here. What belongs in a forest? Oh, I got an idea. Trees! So, visible here are trees. Okay, now what can we do? Well, we can walk north, south, east, or west. Yeah, that's great. Still in the forest. Let me see. What do I want to do next? What do people do with trees? Wait a second. They can climb a tree. So I put that in, and I had my second location. Which, by the way, the first location, the forest, is kind of sneaky. If you walk north from the forest, you end up going back into the same room. If you walk west from the forest, you're back in the same room. If you walk south from the forest, you're back in the same room. Only east would get you out. And guess what? 99% of the time, nobody ever tries going east. They keep going north, south, and west, thinking they're lost in the forest. They're still in the same room. So that was one of the very first puzzles, was get out of the forest.
Can I ask you about the puzzles? Is that I think you've got a love of puzzles. Would that be correct? Because I remember playing the Adventureland, and there was a lava there, and you kept saying this damn lava, and I thought, and then eventually it clicked that that was a clue. So did you really try and get in the heads of the potential players to give them sneaky little clues?
Oh yeah, there are things in there. Yes, I knew what the puzzles were. I also knew what I wanted to get the players thinking. So things did tie together.
Did you actually get people to play the game? Did you have play tested friends, family?
Yes, I had friends that would come in. I probably had the game about 80% along, and what I found with that game and with later games was that play testers were essential because they would do things that I wouldn't think of doing. And I thought, oh yeah, you want to do that, huh? Okay, I'm going to let you do it. And, that gives me an idea of another puzzle. If I let you do this, this could happen, I can add that, and it grew. It grew organically.
Well, this might be an appropriate moment to say you allowed adventurers to do things you didn't expect them to do. Please can you explain why you allow adventurers to have carnal relations with a bear?
That was a total side effect of working in 16K. Early on I realized I needed to reduce vocabulary words because every letter in a word took up precious memory space. So in Adventureland, all the verbs and all the nouns were shortened to 3 letters. So there was a bear, but in the game it was a B-A-R. And what I wanted you to do with the bear to get rid of it is I wanted you to yell at the bear, Y-E-L, or scream at the bear, S-C-R. So those were acceptable things you could do with the bear to solve that puzzle. Well, somebody, I guess, got a little irate. They'd been playing the game for quite a while, couldn't get very far at the bear, and they finally typed in, "Screw bear," and the game replied, "The bear is so startled it falls off the ledge."
Well, wouldn't it? Of course it would. Anyway, moving on from that unintentional bestiality, is that we've talked quite a bit about the challenges of making the game, but then of course there's the challenge of selling it, Scott, because I presume you couldn't just go to EA and say, "Would you publish my game?" It wasn't quite like that.
Right, because that didn't exist yet. I belonged to the Orlando Computer Club, which was one of the earliest computer clubs in the country. Took it down there and showed it to people, and they liked it. They said, "I want a copy." And I went, "Oh, okay." So I started making individual copies on the tape and selling them. Southside Magazine came out, and so I took out a small ad in that and started advertising to sell the game. Basically, what people would get would be just a cassette tape that I recorded the game on, and I mailed it to them. And so that was the original retailing of it. And I later learned about how to do wholesale, which is a whole different story.
I'm really interested. You were still doing everything just at your home at this point. Was this like a family business?
Yes, it was myself, my wife, and working out of a spare bedroom.
Okay, so let's hold that, because I think you've got a good claim to say you are the first ever third-party publisher. Would that be fair?
I guess so.
Well done. Okay, right. I know we're limited with time, so I'm just going to say that you did actually return to Adventure lots later in 2019 with Adventure XL, which I think are you still wearing the t-shirt? Look at that, always advertising, always advertising. And I just wondered, would that be the best way for people who've never played Adventureland to experience it? Would that be the best way? If people haven't played Adventureland, would that be the best way to experience it?
It's one way to do it. Adventureland XL, the XL stood for 2 things. XL as in Roman numeral 40 because it was the 40th anniversary of the game, and XL because it's extra large. The original game's in there, and then a whole lot more. So if you want to try that, you can. It's available on Steam. The classic versions of the two-word game are also freely available on different platforms, different ways to download them.
Okay. We are going to move on to your second adventure, which was Pirate Adventure. This is interesting because whilst your first game had treasures that the adventurer had to find, this one has more of a mission. So were you trying to push the genre even at this very early stage?
Every time I did a game, I found I was trying to do something new and different I hadn't done before. This game still had treasures because I thought a game had to have treasures. So there were 2 treasures in it at the very end that you collect, and you have to find a place to store them when the game's over. And it wasn't until I got to the 3rd game I realized, well, why do I even need treasures? Why don't I just make it a story you have to solve, and then when you reach the end, it's over.
It is set on a desert island. You'd expect that. There are pirates involved. I was fascinated to discover, didn't you actually spend some time on a desert island? Was this Ascension Island that you spent some time?
I spent 18 months down Ascension Island just below the equator. basically working as a space analyst, best way to put it, for Space Defense Command, and I also spent 9 months living on Antigua Island in the Caribbean. So yeah, I had quite the desert island experience, especially Ascension. There's no native population there.
Art imitating life there. Excellent. I'm being British. I rather like that you start Pirate Island in a flat in London. Can I just say why?
That's because to me, I had read about flats in London. I had never been to London. I thought, wow, this is a nice exotic location to begin. But why not? So I'm going to put my players in a flat in London. Not knowing anything about London, most of the game takes place on Pirate Island because I didn't feel that I really could fill in London for them. But at least I gave it a little flavor.
I can assure you it's just as exotic as you imagine, Scott, honestly. Okay, this game I think often really touches people because to get to the island, people have to use the word say yo ho.
Yes.
Okay. And I believe that actually became the title of your column in Softside magazine.
Yes, it did.
I'm interested in this. Were you keen to not only create games, but kind of encourage maybe other people to maybe create their own?
Yes, I did. I had a column there that ran for quite some time, and I was just trying to give people a leg up and a joy of writing games, doing games, and things that I had learned. The tagline for Say Yo Ho in the game would be, everything spins around and suddenly I'm elsewhere. And that's sort of become my tagline. Lots of things are going on in my life, and I say yo ho, and suddenly things spin around and I'm elsewhere.
Well, talking about being elsewhere, just to show how universal your adventures were, this is Pirate Adventure in Japanese. So were you aware that, did you do this conversion? Were you aware that it was all over the world?
Yes, I licensed it for the NEC computer in Japan. I had a sister company in London called Adventure Internationl UK, which handled not only the English market, it also handled all of Europe. I've gotten a lot of fan mail from folks that live in Germany and Italy. So the game really had quite some legs around the world, from Japan to Italy at least.
Thank you, wonderful. Now, we're going to come on to an adventure that is my personal favourite of your bulging back catalogue, and that is The Count. Again, I'm interested because this game, this is the VIC-20 version that I played, is that this game, again, you try and introduce a new mechanic. There is a day and night cycle. Was actually that quite hard to implement because you sort of have to keep track of what people have done on different days? Tell us about it.
It just flowed naturally from there. Every time, like I said, every time I did a game, I'm trying to do something new. I expanded the language, I expanded the capabilities of it, but once again, I'm still living in the same 16K memory space, so I had to be very careful what I added and how I did it. And the day-night cycle and all that was basically just handled by counters and by properly programming the game flow as it went. But once again, it was a brand new concept I was trying out. For that game, it worked out well.
Can I say one of the consequences of that day-night cycle is that you seem very keen on keeping your puzzles sort of have an internal logic. So for example, if you climb the sheet but you're holding a lit torch, you soon realise the cotton is flammable. However, I want to know, by the way, can I just say the dumb waiter? I was only 12 at the time. I did think that was a person who was not going to talk to me for quite a long time. Talk, waiter. Okay, then I realised it was a mechanical thing you could get in. But you put in an oven, okay, that is brilliantly solar powered. Now, where did that idea come from?
I wanted it to be, it had to tie in to a puzzle I was doing where I needed a safe spot that would work at nighttime but not during the day. So I figured, okay, this is a very forward-thinking vampire, and he's installed solar ovens for his staff to do the cooking during the day while he's sleeping.
Also, without doing too many spoilers, is that whilst it's supposed to be, a horror game, it's Dracula, there was a lot of jokes in there, including an awful pun at the end about smoking. Okay, so was injecting some humour into your game an important aspect?
Yes, it was always my intent to be funny where possible, and people are still talking to me from Pirate Adventure about what happened with the Moon Goose, which if you haven't played the game, I'm not going to tell you.
Yes, we know that one. Now this is my favourite of your games, so I was very excited when back at Free Play Florida in 2017, I interviewed you about the game, and my opening sentence was like, this is my favourite of your games. And you said to me, well actually, I wouldn't like this game now because of the dark themes and it's against my faith. And I was quite taken aback. So Scott, shall we explore that a bit? Have you ever found it difficult to be a games creator and reconcile that with your faith?
Yeah, there are things that I've done that I have to put them in perspective. Was this to God's glory, or was it to my glory trying to simply make money? I find that if I'm doing something to God's glory, it's going to work out in the long run so much better.
Okay, that's interesting, because I wondered now at this point, your name was known. Scott Adams,
yes.
So I wondered, how did you cope with the fame?
At first, not very well. Did I ever tell you the Isaac Asimov story?
Let's hear it.
It is, I'll try to make it succinct. At one point, I was blessed to have a Marvel license, the first in the world to do Marvel characters. And part of that was I was traveling up to Marvel frequently to work with the artists and writers there. And one day I'm leaving Marvel, and as I'm going out, the receptionist says, "Hey, Scott, I can't remember the name of the writer."
Stan Lee?
No, not the comic writer. He was a famous science fiction.
Isaac Asimov.
No, it was
Arthur C. Clarke.
No. He was a TV.
This has become a quiz that I'm
TV science writer. I'm just drawing a blank at the moment. Anyway, Harlan Ellison. Sorry, there we go. It was Harlan Ellison's 50th birthday party, and they were throwing a surprise birthday for him. And so the receptionist simply said to me, "Hey, Scott, you know Harlan Ellison, right?" And I thought, yeah, I know, he's very famous. So I simply said, yeah, of course. She said, "Oh, good. Well, maybe you'd like to go to his party tonight." And so she gave me the invite to it. So I go out there, and there is some well-known people from Sulu to writers of Star Trek books. But anyway, finally, Isaac Asimov comes in. And I meet him, and I get to spend time talking with him. Besides my medicine, I had a great time. Okay, the story though that really changed things for me was the next day. I am meeting with some of my vendors that sold Adventure Internationl products at a Comic-Con that was going on near where Marvel was. Because my office said, "Why don't you go check on them and see how they're doing?" So I went. And after I talked with them, I went to leave, and I'm about the distance from here to the front door over there, and I see Isaac Asimov walk in. He walked in, closed the door, I thought, "Oh, that's pretty cool, he's coming to the Comic-Con." But what he did was he walked in, and then he stood there, and he just looked around and stopped. And people are rushing past him, pushing and going up and down, and I'm watching them. And then suddenly, somebody recognized him and went, "It's Isaac Asimov," and ran up to him, and a crowd engulfed him. And I watched his face suddenly come alive. He just lit up. And then I realized that's why he went there. He was simply looking for fan adulation. And I'm going, okay, Have I fallen into that trap? Is that what I am like? I don't ever want to be like that. I'm no better than anyone else, and I want to get to know the people and not be worshipped, as it were.
Hello? Oh, there we are.
You're back.
I'm sorry to I think you do, back then, you were very conscious of your own image. You would sometimes put yourself in.
No,
I think that's yours, Camden. But
who is that ugly vampire anyway?
You rather regret that now, I understand. Is that right?
Well, I actually put myself in the comic series too that I wrote for Marvel.
Oh yes, the Chief Examiner.
Yeah. The way that occurred was...
I love this picture because this is you with your first 12 text adventures. That's wonderful. Of those 12, have you got a favourite, Scott?
Wow. Everyone was my favourite after I wrote it. But as far as the way the games went together and the things they did, I tend to like the count. I like the day-and-night principle that I put in there. I like the tongue-in-cheek, and it was never really meant to be a horror game. That wasn't my intent, because I even leave it as a comedy at the end. But I've had people tell me, as a kid I played this game and I huddled under the covers because of it. So I'm kind of sorry about that.
Excellent. We're going to move on now to what you alluded to there, is that you did made an agreement with Marvel to produce text adventures based on their superheroes. So, did you grow up reading Marvel?
Yes, Marvel and DC both.
Okay. So this sounds like it was a dream come true for you.
Oh, absolutely. And I did not approach Marvel, they approached me, which they said, well, basically we decided we wanted to get into the burgeoning home computer market and have our products done there. And everybody we talked to said, you need to ask Scott Adams. So, whoa, okay. And that's how it was born.
The first one you did was the Hulk. Why did you start with the green angry one? Was there
the Hulk? Yes. Matter of fact, Marvel asked me the same thing. They said, the Hulk really isn't our number one premier character. Spider-Man is. Don't you want to start with Spider-Man? I had already had an agreement with them that I was going to do a series of 12 games with tie-in comics, which I wrote, by the way. And then it was like, well, yes, I want to do Spider-Man, but I want to do it right. I want to experiment with the Hulk, and what I learned from that, I'm going to use in Spider-Man. And they said, okay, well, if that's the way you want to do it, fine. So that's why I started with the Hulk.
I just wondered, how protective were they of their IP? Did they give you free reign, or did you have to check everything with it before?
They were kind of amazing. I had the rights to the entire Marvel universe, all characters, and they gave me every characters. And actually, some of the characters I made became canon in the Marvel universe. And what I've heard from people since, this is the first of any time that has happened. The third parties coming in and creating canon, which is
quite amazing. You did use a second function, this was on the spectrum, and it was more Spider-Man. I wonder whether this has been... There's it is the end of the day, isn't it? There you go. Is that, let's use this opportunity to say, obviously your games at this point have got graphics in. Did you ever want to resist that transition from purely text to graphics as well?
Actually, the Marvel games are all text only. The graphics are added, but towards the end, they're still playable as a text only game. The graphics were never essential. They were never supposed to give away all of everything. Everything was supposed to be from the text. The graphics were like pictures and kids got a couple of things. Well, I did like Captain Spider-Man. Not much animation. Spider-Man.
Fantastic. Look, we're going to move things on since 7:30. The quest process was supposed to run over a 10-year license, which is incredible that you managed to negotiate that. And you did your third game based on the Human Torch and the Thing. I want to ask about that because you had this idea that you would control two characters at the same time. Were you still trying to push the genre even at this point?
Yes, that was absolutely anything that I was trying to do. I was kind of different. I did not want to have to successfully control both the Human Torch and the Thing, and you could switch any time which one you were going to control.
So I'm jiggle this okay. I love that idea as well. You got freedom. I wondered what were your next plans? You were planning number 4 and number 5?
I started working for Adventure Internationl close. I was considering something after the year, but you look on the internet, there's a big mistake that explains what was going on, and that's the first thing. And as you said, there was another thing that me pushing my
I'm just going to bring that up again. That is a picture of you at a show as the chief examiner there. Is the photo with the sort not the hair, I'm not doing the hair. I understand, because of course around this time, Adventure Internationl, your company does business. Was that a surprise or did you see the writing on the wall?
This was the downturn of the video, industry.
Most of the time I'm
stuff on the cloud.
So TypeScript
unfortunately, Adventure Internationl is always so funded. We have whole bunch of outlets. We have no rights and so there was this downturn.
As we demonstrate, like to use a text phrase, time passes. So now you go back to what you like, a programmer, but then in 2013, I know you also did Pixar, 2013, how fascinating, so I remember reviewing this, you returned to text adventures on a game based around computing. So, you talked a little bit about this before, was this a very personal project for you?
It was. I wanted to do something more than that story. The game is still available for Windows on my website. It's worth the download if you don't know the game. You can. I'll put it out to people who want it. I'm afraid that this time probably was too long and too complex. It's a long game. It does not require religious. It doesn't push on religious things. What it does have is an algorithm. Unfortunately, you don't decide. It's just simply to show that you understand what those means. So it's not really overly
Because John's Gospel just started with, in the beginning was the Word. So do you think that there's a natural affinity between scripture and text adventures?
actually I want to put it into just now.
They have that for free. There you go. Just one last one on this. I wonder if how this is slightly different since you want to work. Do you encourage people to engage with the scripture?
This is later when I did the statement movement, I put in for the 1844 or the times that people were playing with the statistics. This doesn't, so I don't, then I want to say
As if by magic, the final one, the final adventure is indeed the same that 18. Now Scott, you call this one a conversational adventure. Could you just tell us what you mean by that too?
this one's kind of unique, like I said, whole structure. And in this game, what happens is, whatever your actions are, you're creating a novel. And it's flowing from your actions. So that's why the conversational adventure concept.
Can I say, I've reviewed this, and I was absolutely struck by how complex or how sophisticated the parser was. You really can write in full sentences. I just wondered, when you were working on this, did you reminisce about having to create an adventure using just 2-word commands? And think, God, I should say that, how far things have come.
Yes, they have. They certainly have. You look around today, and it's very obvious that the gaming industry has changed considerably since its early dawn. Keep in mind, when I first started, there was no gaming industry, and people said, "You use a computer to play games? What's wrong with you?" They're supposed to be business and tools and science. They're not toys.
Oh yes, they are. Okay, I remember when I reviewed this, you mentioned to me the idea of playing this just using a voice, like with Alexa or other interfaces are available. Do you still think that's an idea with legs?
This was put out on Alexa, so that you could play it by voice only. Part of the problem, though, with if you said, "I want to play Escape the Groomer" to Alexa, it says, "Oh, you want to see the groomer? Okay, I'm going to see where you can get a haircut."
Thank God, I thought it was going another way then as well. Okay, right, what a relief. Okay, I see. Wonderful.
I suppose
Scott.
it could have been worse.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Scott, it's coming to that time of the evening. We're on to the final game, and this is called Final Pilot, which is only just out. Now, the more observant members of the audience might spot that this isn't a text adventure. So, could you just tell us, what was your motivation creating, an action game?
This game was actually developed for another company that had the vision of what they wanted, and I and a team of programmers created it. Later, the company decided they couldn't figure out how to monetize it. They were closing down. They had already put a large chunk of money into developing it. And out of the blue, they said, "Scott, do you want it? I'll give you the rights to it. If you can figure out how to monetize it, I just want a small royalty." I said, "Oh, okay." So this game is out there now. Anybody who wants to play it, go to finalpilot.com, just the way it sounds. And you and 60 of your closest friends can play it. You don't actually need 60 players. It will use AI for those people who may not show up. And the whole concept is to end up being the final pilot. It's a space battle royale game. Takes 10, 15 minutes. And it can be addicting, so be careful.
Now, Scott, this means that as you just released that this year, you have been making games for almost 50 years, and I'm sorry if that ages you there. Okay. Scott, what keeps you still at it?
I have ideas and I like to try them, and the thing that keeps me happy the most is seeing other people happy from the things I do. So I get a kick out of that.
What a wonderful. Just to finish, I'm now going to show a picture of Scott posing with 3 beautiful models. That's a TI-99, an Apple II, and a TRS-80. Scott Adams, thank you so much for joining us. Let's hear it for Scott.
It's been wonderful. And like I said when I started, if I haven't met some of you, I'd love to meet you now.
Well, we have just got a few minutes left, so if anyone, Tony, can you do the honours? If anyone would like to ask a question or two, we've got a few minutes left, please. Thank you.
Hello, sir. What's your name and where are you from?
Name's Ethan. I'm from Chicago. I was curious a little bit about making a business of distributing, making games in Florida. Did you ever have any troubles getting talent or distributing out of there for Adventure Internationl?
Not as much as you might think. I actually started a chain of computer stores down there, and so we were our own consumer for that. I had West Coast distributors. I also had outside authors, and we were not just adventures. By the time we closed, we had a much larger catalog of a lot of other things. A lot of things learned over the years. We even did some cartridges. We had a cartridge game out, Rally Speedway, which was a lot of fun. So good question. I basically learned as we went, and never really considered Florida being a detriment to where we were, even though it seemed like everybody else was mostly over on the West Coast.
What was your most challenging game that you wrote and why?
Challenging for the play.
Challenging.
And another microphone bites the dust. The question was challenging for me or the playing? Okay, the most challenging game for me was probably Escape the Glimmer in one respect, and as far as text adventures go. The concept of the conversational game made it rather interesting. I wanted it to really flow well. If you read everything afterwards, you truly came out. And the second one was Final Pilot, because I was using technologies, I was using Unity 3D at the time, and there was no multiplayer harness at all to be able to do the type of things I was doing. So I was looking at other protocols and methods to work the data. So that was interesting.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. To say a big thank you first to my friend and colleague, Marty Carroll, who's done all the videos, to Dan, Marty, Q, and all the people that put on this fantastic show. You for all coming, especially at this late hour. My friend and colleague, Tony Temple, for doing the mic. But most importantly, to someone whose games have meant a huge amount to me, and I know a huge amount to some people in the audience. Thank you for all those hours, days, months, years of entertainment. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Mr. Scott Adams.
God bless you.